Okay, it's going to tell you that it's recording. I don't like corned beef. Don't like it. It's disgusting. I don't believe somebody really, oops, came up with that on their own.
Hawaiian dishes is really good.
Eh,
This girl was Hawaiian, she would make that for me.
yeah, but she probably had a magic way to make it. Okay, from current slide. Okay, I am recording. So it is St. Patty's Day. One of my favorite dishes to make is fried cabbage. I go and I chop up a bunch of cabbage and I go get a lot of bacon because my kids like bacon. And so I cook up the bacon and then I fry the cabbage in the bacon grease. And normally I'll fry it with onions and potatoes, and I can't keep it in the house. I have to keep making it because they just scarf it all down, even the cabbage, which is shocking. And the cabbage isn't, I like it a little crunchy, but it's still kind of tender, and it's not like the cabbage you're going to put in your tacos, but it's so good. And then I also make boxty, which is, and a lot of people have this, some people call them, they're basically just potato cakes. Latkes, there's a number of names for them in different cultures. But so I make boxty and then I serve it with some type of meat over the top and a bechamel sauce over the top. So yeah, it's mine. I guess I gotta go find some bacon and a ton of cabbage. It's gonna be busy today. Okay, here's to accounting. Okay, so we're gonna revise our depreciation estimates. And I believe that this is exactly where we ended. So I'm gonna go forward. So we have a machine. It initially had a cost of 140,000. We expect to use it for 5 years. Residual value is 10,000. So that means my depreciation base is 130,000 divided by 5 years gives me 26,000 per year. Well, at the end of the second year, so we've already depreciated 2 years. We determined that we kind of, for whatever reason, okay, the book cost right now is 88,000. We didn't compute the depreciation correctly, and it has to do with the useful life of the machine. And so we need to go back in and depreciate and figure out what we should have done. So here's my 140,000, my initial cost, my 52,000 in accumulated depreciation. Here's my book value. My book value is the one that I'm going to use in order to create this, come up with this depreciation. So we determined that, okay, we've got another 8 years remaining. So that means actually it became 10 years. So we got another 8 years remaining in useful life. And the new residual value is 8,000. So I'm going to go and take my 88,000 minus the 8,000 divided by 8, and that gives me 10,000. I don't go back and change anything from previous periods. I just start anew. So that is what it looks like. And so you can see here was at a rapid rate, and we would have hit 5 if we didn't revise this. Now we've revised it, whoops, and it's continuing out to 10 years. So there we go. That's wonderful. Now, revenue expenditures and capital expenditures. You'll see me go, capital, it's capital. Revenue expenditures are expenses. Now, capital expenditures, when you hear the term capital, that means that I'm not going to take this cost and expense it. I'm going to move it to the balance sheet. Yes, that's when you purchase a fixed asset, that's a capital. So that's what we're doing. So anytime you hear me say capital, that means I'm moving this up to the balance sheet. It happens quite a bit in managerial accounting. So we're going to do some questions and answers to determine whether it's an expense or it's actually a capital purchase. So here we have 300 paid for a tune-up of a delivery truck is as follows. So we went and took our delivery truck down and we got a tune up. That's an expense. That's just normal wear and tear on the piece of equipment. That would be like me going down, taking my car for an oil change or driving into the mechanic and going, can you change my spark plugs? Okay, what's amusing is my car doesn't have spark plugs. They don't anymore. I know, I was like, what? But I heard about spark plugs. No, they don't have them anymore. Okay, so sometimes we do have costs that actually can either decrease accumulated depreciation or increase the value of that fixed asset. And so here we took in a forklift and overhauled it at a cost of $4,500. With this overhaul, I have extended it, the life, by 8 years. So basically I kind of like did a new engine, made the new engine fresh. So now I can use it for 8 years longer. And so we're actually going to take that 4,500 and we're going to reduce the amount of depreciation. And of course, out the door went my cash. So that's accumulated depreciation. Okay, so because the useful life has changed, we need to go in and change the depreciation method on that piece of equipment. So we're going to extend the life. We're going to revisit the residual value. So we need to take that into consideration. Okay, so again, more capital expenditures. This is when we improve the asset. And so the next one is going to be about putting a hydraulic lift on a delivery truck. And so those are those things that go up and down. So when the guys go and they pull this stuff out of the delivery truck, it moves them down so they're not having to bend over and whatnot. So they went and they added this hydraulic lift. That is not extending the useful life. That's just making it better. So we're going to add that amount to the fixed asset. Out the door went cash. We also need to go back and revisit the depreciation methods we're using and the useful life along with the residual value. So this is really easy. This one right here says, okay, you got these revenue and capital expenditures. Well, how do we know? So I go and I look at the cost, and if it only benefits the current period, it's an expense. If it could potentially benefit future periods, then we're going to have to look at what type of capital purchase this was. So benefits only current period, that includes tires, okay? Tires are wear and tear, normal wear and tear. I know people, you kind of think in your head, but they could last 2 years theoretically. No, they're normal wear and tear. So now I'm going to look at extraordinary repair that extends the useful life. So that's going to be a capital expenditure, debit your accumulated depreciation, then go back and revisit your depreciation. If it's an asset improvement, we're going to add that to the cost of that fixed asset, and you're going to debit your fixed asset. And again, of course, you're going to go and revisit that depreciation. Let's see, if your investment doesn't meet any of those, let's say the land, well, that's not really going to matter in this situation, but remember, you always have investments in there as well, if that it doesn't meet any of these criterias. We're going to toss our fixed assets. So if a fixed asset is no longer used and has no residual value, it is discarded. You also get rid of your accumulated depreciation. It's really easy. That's it. So I'm going to throw away my fixed asset. It has no residual value. I'm going to debit my accumulated depreciation, credit my cost of my equipment. And that's going to remove it straight from my books. Nice, sweet, short, to the point. That's one of the reasons why I like making no residual value, because I don't have to worry if we're getting rid of the fixed asset. Now, please remember that even if I completely depreciate a fixed asset, if I can still use it, I'm going to use it. It's kind of like a car payment. I paid off my car, I don't know, a couple of years ago, maybe. I can't remember. But so I paid off my car. Does that mean that because I don't have a loan payment anymore, I can't use my car? No. Same thing with the depreciation. If you can still use it, use it. You're just not going to depreciate it any further. So that's what happens there. Okay, so that was, if it's been fully depreciated. Now, what happens if we're depreciating right in the middle? It hasn't been fully depreciated. So right now we are getting rid of some piece of equipment, and it had an accumulated depreciation balance after adjusting entries of $4,650 on December 31st of the previous year. So March of the following year, we decide we're going to remove it and we're going to get rid of it. So can I see this? Oh, okay, there we go, 6,000. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to look at the depreciation, and I have to fully depreciate January, February, March, because we're getting rid of it on March. So I'm going to do that. And this is where I'm going to come up with my depreciation amount. So I'm going to fully depreciate it, get it all the way to where it needs to be. And then I'm going to get rid of it. So I guess I just threw this away, because here's my debit, my accumulated depreciation, because I'm getting rid of it, crediting my equipment. Now, of course, if I looked at the 4,800 and the 6,000, my debits and credits don't balance. So I actually had a loss on this because I got rid of it. And who knows, maybe it got in an accident. I don't know. We'll just pretend. Now, one of the things that I do want to mention is that if you have somebody discarding fixed assets or somebody in charge of your fixed assets, make sure they are out of accounting. Okay, you don't want them inside of accounting, but you don't want them part of that team. Not that they wouldn't be nice to the person, but the reason being is that when you discard a fixed asset for whatever reason, you throw it in the dumpster, you give it away, you sell it, you need to keep evidence of what you did with that fixed asset. So I'm going to have a form that tells me exactly what happened with that fixed asset and why I discarded it, sold it, or gave it away, and what the value of it was. GM gives us a lot of vehicles for the automotive place to practice on. So they're getting rid of their fixed assets. They don't need them anymore. They're probably fully depreciated. It's not worth, storing them. So they give it to us. So when they give it to us, we're taking in all that information. And I know for a fact, they're probably filling out a form explaining the market value of that fixed asset and why they're giving it away. And then they send it on to the head of GM, and they have a nice record of it. So make sure, and the reason why I say keep it out of accounting is because theoretically, if I'm the one in accounting and I can write off assets, I could go look at a computer. I'll go find a computer somewhere. Let's say this one right here, or the one in my office. And I'm going to write off that asset. Even though there's nothing wrong with it, I can make up an excuse, right? And I can say I threw it away. Well, who can double check me? Nobody, because I can be sneaky. So that's why you do that. Okay. If we sell a fixed asset, the selling price is more than the book value, then you have a gain. If it's less than, it's a loss. I don't put, now they're gonna use something called, let's see. First, we're gonna bring up our depreciation to the beginning, or to the point it needs to be, because we sold it on October 12th. So that means I've got 9 months. Now, I'm only doing 9 months because October 12th is the first half of October. So I'm going to go back. If it was October 16th, I would include the entire month of October. So we're going to get that caught up. So now the book value is 2,250. Okay. If I sold it for exactly what the book value is, that would be my journal entry, and that would be lovely. But there's a strong likelihood that that's not the case. If I sold it at a value of $1,000, we have a loss of 1,250. So here's my cash, here's my accumulated depreciation, and here's my loss on sale of equipment. Now, because I'm lazy, and these are type of transactions that don't happen that often, so I usually have one GL account, and it's called gain or loss on the sale or disposal of a fixed asset. And so I include everything in there, just because you may get one or two of these a year, so it's not a big deal. So you can see we sold it for less than the book value, so we had a loss. Now we're going to sell it for more than the book value, and we're going to have a gain. And so that is selling our fixed assets. And they have a checkup corner, and they're selling their fixed assets. I'm not going to do that. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to come out of here, and I'm going to go to my handy dandy Excel. I got this stupid song in my head. All I know is they say turn down for what? I don't know why I have it in my head. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create just a little journal, because I can do that. And this is going to actually take care of the appendix that we have going on in the back of this chapter, because I'm going to show you how easy it is. Debit and credit. Here's my debit, there's my credit. All balance, don't forget it. Okay, so I have, let's say, a Ford F-250. Let's say it's completely depreciated. It is 10 years old. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, and let's say it's today, so that's 3/17, and I'm going to, again, it's completely depreciated. So I'm going to remove this from my books. And I'm going to pretend that I bought it for 50,000. And then my truck, 50,000. Okay. Now I'm going to take this completely depreciated truck on my books. It has zero value. And I'm going to go buy a better, newer, and greater truck. So right here, I'm going to go in and I'm going to get a truck. And I was looking at some of the Fords, and the ones that are 10 years old are like $50,000 to buy. So I'm going to buy a new one. I'm going to put 105 just because I want to. So I'm buying a new truck. Yay. And I know I'm piecemealing my journal together. So I'm going to have to put some cash down. And so I'm putting the truck down, and I'm putting some cash down. So let's say we put $5,000 of cash down. And I'm also going to have to do a loan. And what do I want the loan to be? I'm going to say it's 70,000. Now here, what I'm going to do to show you how I piecemeal my things together is I'm going to run and see, what do my debits and credits look like? Well, as you can see, my debits are more than my credits. So obviously, this is gain or loss on the sale. That's what we're doing. We're trading it in of a fixed asset. And so that 30,000, let's see, it's not 30,000. Yes, it is. Was the trade-in value I got for the truck. So that's how we go and trade things in. This is how it looks. And I know I've piecemealed my debits and credits together. It's okay. I don't see any lightning flashing. Okay, but typically we want debits to go before the credits. But sometimes it's easy to do this because I can figure out what my gain or loss is and make sure I've accounted for everything. So that's what that is. And so I'm going to go ahead and come back out. Okay, where did I go? I'm down here. Okay, so I'm going to skip that. Okay, natural resources. Actually, it's going to go pretty fast from here. So I always like to talk about a cute, really old movie. And so I sit there and I start to sing the $1 Million Diamond Mine. Anybody know where that came from? $1 Million Diamond Mine? What if I added hi ho, hi ho? Yeah, that's how they start the song. So, and I had somebody who wanted to talk about mineral rights. And I got to be very generic with this, so please don't get into what the government owns and what you own. Okay, when you buy land. So what happens here is I'm going to buy some land, and we call it natural resources because I'm going to take those resources out of the land. So it could be, they have up here, oil, minerals, timber. Those are examples. I want to do diamonds because, you know, hey, diamonds are a girl's best friend. So I'm going to pretend that I won the lottery. I do have a lottery ticket. I need to check to see if I did. I'm always scared because I don't win, and then I'm disappointed. So, okay, so I won the lottery, and I decide that I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy, somebody says that there's some mining rights over here, and I'm going to buy the mining rights. Now I got some land out in the middle of nowhere. I'm going to have to go in, bring in the roads, and bring in the infrastructure in order to start mining. So all of those costs, the cost of the mineral rights, the land, and all of those costs to make this mine so that I can start working on it is part of the cost of the mine. And so here are the characteristics. It's naturally occurring. Yeah, we like that. We can remove it for sale, and it's going to take us more than 1 year. One of the things I do like to, you can see here, they're talking about preparing it for use. We don't realize is how many mining entities we have around here. When I was a teenager, all the guys wanted to go work at the gold mine, which was about 10 miles outside of Winter Haven. And so that was a big deal. And they'd go work for that gold mine, and they would, you know, do what you do. Eventually they decided that it had no more value, or they didn't want to mine anymore. And the company went and got rid of it. There was talk of opening it back up, but I haven't heard much from them. So then, let's see, if you're going to YPG and you're on I'm driving on Highway 95, and you go across that turn, there's a bunch of aggregate plants. Now what they're doing is they're going in and they're mining the rocks. And believe it or not, rocks are a big deal in Yuma. And so they have these screens, and it starts with the largest all the way to the smallest. And so they go in and, or maybe it's this, it's largest to smallest. And they go in and they put this pile of rocks and they let it sift out on these screens. And so that's how they come up with, they have quartz out here. So it could be a 1/4 inch, it could be a 1/2 inch, 1 inch. That's how they get the sizes of the rocks. And then people in Yuma, because we don't want to landscape, we go buy the rocks and put it in our yard. So, but we do have aggregate plants. I have gone, and back in the turn of the century, there was a lot of mining going on in the Kofa range. Now that's pretty much the property of, the federal government, YPG. If you want to go back in there, you need to ask permission. Same thing with the bombing range over here, and don't pick up anything that looks a little funny because it might explode. So you can do that, not pick it up though. My dad and I, many years ago, like 23 years ago, we used to go hiking out in the Copa Range, and he was looking at all the old mines that people would go and, he just wanted to see what they were up to. And so you can still find turquoise mineral deposits, and there you can see the rocks, and they've just got veins of turquoise in them. I wanted to take them, but they were kind of heavy. You're not supposed to take them, but I wanted them. No. But you could theoretically go in there and get chisel and start to try to mine out that turquoise. But so we did crawl around in some mines and stuff like that. It was kind of cool. So sometimes, he would make me wait till it was really dark. And the bats came out of the cave first, which really grossed me out because you're sitting there and it's like squish, squish, squish. And then the bats flew at me and I ducked and I wouldn't move. So, but anyhow, so it is kind of a really cool thing to do. And so we do have lots of opportunities here and all throughout Arizona. Okay, so we use the units of activity method in order to calculate, we're not going to call it depreciation, we're going to call it depletion because the land does not depreciate. However, we are depleting the mineral deposit. So cost of the resource divided by the estimated total units of resource. That's going to give us our depletion rate. And then you just look at whatever is driving the mining, if it's oil, I'm sure there's liters or something like that, or gallons. If it's going to be gold, it's going to be tons. Diamonds, it's going to have another different driver. So here is my their example. Cost us $400,000. We think there's 1 million tons, and this year we mined 90,000 tons. Well, you can see there's some of the answer right there. So I take that 400,000 divided by the total units of the resource, 1 million, I get 40 cents. Then I'm going to take that 40 cents, and this year we took out 90,000. So I'm going to multiply it by the 90,000, and I'm going to get 36,000. Woo! I'm right. Woohoo! How are you guys doing? Everybody okay? Okay. Now, here's my depletion expense and my accumulated depletion. You're going to find this in your balance sheet. It's going to go your fixed assets. Then you're going to list these mineral rights that you are depleting. They're going to come after your fixed assets. So, and again, you got a contra asset account, accumulated depletion. They want us to go ahead and do this problem. So basically we spent 126 million. We got 42 million in tons. So first thing we need to do is find our depletion rate. And so I'm going to take 126 divided by 42, and I'm going to get a very easy number. The reason why I'm taking 126 divided by 42 is because each of these numbers has 6 zeros, so I can cross them out. Like, let me see, where's my annotate? I could go in, so take 1 0. You actually should go the opposite way. 2 zeros. 3 zeros. This is really boring for you guys. And then we got 3 more zeros. I'm just going to mark through. And so basically all I'm left with is 126 and 42. And I'm going to get the answer is 3. So we've got the depletion rate per ton. And now I'm going to take that 3 and I'm going to multiply it by the 3,800,000 tons that we just did. Okay. And I'm going to get out of annotations. And so 3 times 38. So that's going to be a 4. And so I'm going to carry the 2. 3 times 3 is 9. Carry the 2, 11. 11,400,000. I know you guys are amazed. but most of you probably already had it in your head. So here's my depletion expense and my accumulated depletion. It's that easy. Now we get to do some fun things. I have to stand up because I just do. I'm kind of, my legs are wobbly today. People, business, environment, sustainability. Oh, that's pretty cool. Okay, so what does intangible mean? You can't touch it. Okay, so then I got to throw my shoulders back and go, no, can't touch this. Okay, that's my little dance I have to do whenever I get to intangible assets. So we can, it actually has no physical property and it's intangible. So they have examples. They got patents, copyrights, trademarks, and goodwill. There's a whole lot more types of intangible assets out there, but we're going to focus on these four. And the reason being is because these two here have, okay, have fun. We're going to have, these two have a useful life, whereas these two do not. They are perpetual. So we're going to get into patents first. And yesterday I was so bad because I kept mixing them up, but we'll try to not be bad today. With our patents, or with our intangible assets, because they're intangible, we do not have any type of accumulation. Okay, there's no accumulation amortization. What we do is we credit that intangible asset. So we are going to have an expense as we use up the usefulness of either a patent or a copyright. And when we use that up, we're going to have amortization expense. That's going to be my debit, and my credit is going to be the intangible asset. So we're going to decrease it over time. Okay. Patents. I always like to use drugs as my example for patents. Yeah, Nick just looked at me like, good choice.
They think how they change them little by little so they can keep it patent.
Yeah, I did mention that, but yeah, that's exactly right. So I'm going to take us back to my 20s. Back in the late 80s, early 1990s, Prozac was the big drug to take. Everybody had to have Prozac. We were all running around, you know, we were just popping it back, throwing it, whoever caught it, that was great. Prozac cost about $100 a month. Back in that day and age. That was expensive. That's because only the maker had the patent on it, and no other drug company could go and produce that drug. So one of my children, one of the doctors prescribed Prozac, and I went to the store to pick it up. The patent's gone. $7.40 some cents. I know. So I was like, you're kidding me. So same son, I'm going to go back about 20 years, a little bit less than 20 years. And he was diagnosed with ADHD. So that poor kid, the doctor, when I took him in to have him evaluated, he wrote on a prescription pad, because I needed that for the school, ADHD without doubt. And he gave me that on a prescription pad. I think I still have it somewhere in my house. But so he prescribed Concerta. Concerta is a extended release, and basically it's Ritalin. It's just got some other properties added to it. And that was, I think it was $160 a month back then. Okay, that was a pretty penny out of my pocket. He went back to the doctor recently, and they said, "Here, we'll try Concerta again because you've been off it for so long." $54. And so I left and I said, it came off its patent, didn't it? And they're like, yeah, it's not that expensive anymore. And I'm just like, okay. because I remember paying so much money for it. It was crazy. Now, Nick just mentioned that a lot of times what happens is these drug companies, in order to save their patent and claim the right to continue producing whatever drug they're trying or whatever to help some type of condition, they will go in and they will change just a little bit of it. And then they repatent it and they can charge you an arm and a leg. Now, some people were mentioning the EpiPen, which is for allergies if you have a real severe allergy reaction. And that's not what happened there. What happened was a woman decided she was going to charge an arm and a leg because she wanted to increase revenue. And then they ran her off, which is fine because she made a stupid decision. She was going to charge people $1,000 for an EpiPen. And yeah,
Cost was like the production cost was like a couple of dollars.
yeah, it was, yeah, it's ridiculous. How much?
$60.
Yeah, so she got into, her ethics was questioned. Let's just put it that way. Now, I'm going to give you an example of a drug that was repatented. So my mother so my mom had Alzheimer's and that's what she died from. So she had an Alzheimer pill and it was the newest, greatest, and it cost a lot of money. Thank God she had good insurance. So what they did, this new Alzheimer's drug, I'm like, but she's got this one. And they're like, well, basically they're taking the antidepressant and the Alzheimer drug and combining them. And then they're charging. So you only need one pill instead of two. And so that's what they did. And of course they can charge whatever they want to because they have a new patent.
It makes me think, why can't, like, let's say that they make this patent and how long is patent stuff? Like 20 years?
20 years.
20 years? Why can't, like, once this and they make a new one, the company can be claimed and say, oh no, we're not making a new drug, we're making their slightly different drug that they're no longer.
Usually they add something to it so that they can really say it's a new drug. But I wouldn't say they make it smaller because I've seen different sizes all the time for drugs.
No, I was saying, like, okay, let's say you're a different business, you're this company and they have a patent on a drug and they make a different thing so they can still claim the patent. Why can't you as a company do their old drug and say, we're gonna make this drug, but it's not their new drug, it's their old drug.
I would, if it was me and I was the drug company, I would go get some of their drug and I would test it to see if it's exactly like mine. And if it's exactly like mine or so close, I would sue them for the patent rights.
Basically legal shenanigans.
Yeah, you're gonna have some,
So
that's
even-
true.
Even if it's like you're making the old one and not.
But you're not allowed to make the old one yet because it's still under patent. I know, even though, so it's under patent. Another drug company can't come in, take your property, intangible asset, and then go do a couple tweaks and then,
I'm saying, like, can't they justify that they're not
No.
making the new? So the old new patent covers the old drug?
because it's so similar, I'm gonna tell you, no, they can't. Because it's too similar, so you still gotta wait because of that. You've got that creative research and development. So, and that's the reason why you have a patent is to protect against situations like that. But do I think, yeah, I got my opinion. So one of the things that I do find interesting, there's only a couple of countries that allow for direct to patient advertising. We're one of the only ones, United States. So that's why we see all of these crazy drug commercials. I like SNL because they really do a good job of making fun of the pharmaceutical industry. So yeah, SNL, that's where I would go to watch my drug stuff. Everywhere.
Oh, yeah, I heard, go get this drug.
And then
It's gonna make your life better.
they really got money, you may suffer death or something.
Yeah, oh yeah, and then they put all the side effects like, and you're gonna It's like, okay, so some of you guys, because you guys went down into Mexico, you guys know, what's his name? Oh my gosh, Fluffy, Gabriel Iglesias. He does a comedy routine where he talks about, he goes down in and he interviews with a Hispanic radio station. And he's talking to this guy on the radio, and the man talks all normal, and then when he starts talking on the radio, he's I can't do it, but he's talking super fast. It's like, okay, now we're gonna have him, and he just goes. And Gabriel Iglesias said he can't even understand him. So, but it's funny. You guys, again, if you like comedy, go watch his skit. I can't do the whole thing here because it's inappropriate. Okay. And half of it I don't even know. So I don't speak Spanish that well to know what he's saying. Okay, so having a patent and the amortization, it's going to be under a straight line method. And so here we go. This is whenever we're going to have some amortization. We got this patent. We think it's going to have 5 years of useful life. And so 100,000 divided by 5 each year, I'm going to amortize 20,000. And I'm just going to decrease that patent. Okay, and the reason why they're allowed to do this by the government is so they can recoup the cost of creating this drug, this handy dandy magic drug that's going to make everything better. You can see I look real convinced, right? Copyrights. This is one of the things, and this is what if Juan may need to pay attention to. Copyrights, they extend 70 years past the author's death. And like here it says, it's literary, artistic, so it's going to be something kind of creative.
That 7 years beyond the author's death was made by the Walt Disney Corporation. It was not like that before. As soon as the author died, it was free reign, and Walt Disney made that change.
Yeah, I mean, well, look at, okay, so I'll bring up a story that I know. Okay, so there's this dude, and he was a really good musician in a very famous band with bowl haircuts. And I'm going to call him John Lennon. So I can't remember when he died. It was the late 80s, early 90s. Somebody killed him. And he had most of the copyrights for the Beatles music. It went to his next of kin, which is the lady that broke up the Beatles, Yoko Ono. I don't know if she did. I just say that because yeah. So anyhow, so she was like, well, what am I going to do with this? And so she put it on the market and tried to sell it. And she did sell it. Now, what's his face? Paul McCartney was getting really mad because he said, you should just give it to me. Well, they didn't. They sold it to Michael Jackson. So Michael Jackson's, he had that copyright for all the Beatles music. So what does that mean? So that means every time a movie wants to have a Beatles song in the movie, they have to go to the person who has the copyright and ask for permission, and they're going to be paid. So Paul McCartney got real mad at Michael Jackson, and they didn't talk for a while, yada, yada, yada. Of course, Michael Jackson passed away. His estate got the copyrights, and they sold it back to Paul McCartney. So Paul has his copyrights now. But with this, like I said, you have to ask permission to use it. You can't just arbitrarily start using somebody else's creativity in your movie or whatever you're doing and not pay for it. It's not fair.
Is Happy Birthday copyrighted, I think?
No, it was done a long time ago. So it's already beyond that. If you like the Big Bang Theory, the guy who did, and I haven't heard what happened, so I have a feeling it was kind of hush hush, and they gave the person some money under the table, and everybody signed a no release clause. Okay, so that goofy song, soft kitty, warm kitty, little ball of fur. Okay, so that song was actually in a book, and somebody saw it and they decided to use it on the Big Bang Theory. Well, the family, because I guess the author was dead, the family had the rights to that book. And so they sued the production of the Big Bang Theory because they were using that, and they used it in a number of, they continued to use it. So I'm assuming somebody got paid. So again, you have to ask permission. And if there's still copyright is still valid, you need to pay.
System. Back when put like a cover song in their albums, you can do it, but it has to go through a clearinghouse because otherwise you open yourself up to a lawsuit and they can take your entire office.
Yeah. Look what happened to the Verb. They had a piece, just I don't know how long the piece was, but it was from the Rolling Stones, and the Rolling Stones went and said, no, no, no. And same thing, who else? Vanilla Ice, Ice Baby. I think it was David Bowie. He sampled David Bowie and didn't ask for permission. And so I think he's working at McDonald's. That's what I heard. So you got to be really careful with this. It does have a useful life of 70 years beyond the author's death. So in 2060, thereabout, anybody can sample the Beatles music. So
the copyright is lost. We don't like fight it. We don't enforce it. So if somebody goes and uses McDonald's logo and they don't fight it, they can lose that copyright, that trademark.
That's actually a trademark.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting. So you got to enforce your rights to your own property.
So Disney marketed it, says maybe we should do 100 years.
Yeah, they could. You never know. Even though I'm a Disney fan, because it's the most magical place on earth. The cost of the copyright include whatever it takes to create the product. And then you amortize it over its estimated useful life. And of course, you're going to have that amortization expense, and then you're going to credit the copyright. Okay, I love doing the trademarks just because I can draw, just not on the board. Oh, actually, this is the best one I've had yet. Okay, there's that one. That one's kind of, you might kind of go, what? That is not Apple, the computer program. Okay, because they have like a piece taken out, like a bite taken out. Okay, what's that? Nike. Yeah, that one's easy. I mean, whenever you see the swoosh, you know it's Nike. Actually, I did a pretty good job. I should take a picture of that. Okay, this one is not Apple, the computer company. It's on a sign all over the country.
Oh,
Applebee's. And the reason why I use that one is my grandbaby would only see the apple when he was like 2 or 3 years old. And he'd go, Applebee's, Applebee's, I want to eat at Applebee's. Okay, so, I mean, this little toddler can pick up on the trademarks. And then we all know this one. It's not yellow, but we know what it is, McDonald's. And yeah, people can, I don't know why Icons closed. Well, they became Zyco. So Icons was using that as the name of the restaurant, but there was another restaurant out there that had trademarked the name. And they went in and they gave them a cease and desist letter. And so they named it Zydeco or something like that. So that can happen. Now, a trademark, you can renew every 10 years. So its useful life is to the moon and back. So, okay, I'll talk about impairment in just a minute when we get to the goodwill. And I'll talk about what could happen and how and what you need to do in order to record impairment of your intangible assets. And that's usually a trademark or your goodwill. Goodwill is when you purchase a company and it's actually valued higher than what the company is worth. And so that's the goodwill, like Chili Pepper. If I was to buy Chili Pepper and on their books, they only said that they had 40 million in fixed assets and they sell it to me for 50 million, that 10 million is going to be the goodwill because of the reputation, management, they've already created the product, so on and so forth. So that's what goodwill is. The only time you can record goodwill is if you have evidence and you keep that evidence of the actual financial dollars. Now, again, you can theoretically, okay, goodwill lasts forever. If something happens in your business, your goodwill or your trademark may become impaired. Like, for example, if Nike is found out to be using 3-year-olds in their manufacturing process, people might get mad and Nike may be looked down upon. I know I'm kind of exaggerating, but I'll give you some examples. The one that happened recently was the Chipotle and the Salmonella or Ebola, where a number of stores had it. And so they had to close down for a while and revamp. So, I mean, that's a big old huge. I don't trust them. Ick. So they could, show impairment for their trademark or their goodwill. Another one, Taco Bell, but this happened probably about 10, 15 years ago. So the FDA regulates how much meat product you can have in your foods and still call it meat. So most of your meat products have fillers. Some people use flour. I say, think about making a meatloaf. You can't keep the meatloaf together unless you use fillers, the oatmeal, the flour. I put egg and milk, to try to keep so it's not all meat. Well, there's some other things they can put in, and they said, somebody told me the name of it, and I can't remember yesterday. So McDonald's was found to have more fillers than it had meat, and they did not meet the guidelines. And so McDonald's got in big trouble because they were not putting enough meat in their hamburger meat. That sounds great. That would be an example of goodwill lost. Now, a billion years ago, Jack in the Box was caught serving, and I don't think it was all the Jack in the Box. I think it's one little area. Somebody thought they'd cut corners and they served horse meat. Yeah, so now nobody wants to go eat a Jack in the Box. So that happened. Then Jack in the Box, okay, and this was fine. Jack in the Box decided to revamp their company. And so the board came in and they blew up all the Jack in the Boxes and they revamped the symbols. Then shortly after 9/11, Jack in the Box was going through another rebranding, so to speak, and they decided to bring back Jack. So Jack walked into the boardrooms and he blew up all the board members. And people were not happy because it was right after 9/11. So it was bad timing on their part. So that would be an example, goodwill lost. So, and they could probably record it. And so this is what you do. And so I guess here there's an impairment of some type of electronic. Maybe it shocked everybody's face. I don't know. So here are intangible assets, and it tells you who has the most and da. Customer list. So your credit card companies, your banks, they can sell those customer lists. That's why, the Republican Party. When I registered when I was 18 to vote, I registered as a Republican because if I registered as a Democrat, I would have been kicked out of my house. So, yeah, I had a military dad. Yeah. So, Trump is always inviting me out for dinner. Of course, he wants me to pay like $20,000 to go hang out with him. But no, thank you. So I'm getting constant emails from these organizations, even places like right now, I'm getting the refinance. What else am I getting? I'm getting refinance. Here, take a loan from us. Here's a new credit card. You have to want it. I get all kinds of stuff. And of course, the Republican Party. And I get stuff from the state of Arizona's Republican Party as well. So I get junk. People wanting me to review Walmart or CVS or Walgreens, and I hadn't even been there this week. So,
You want to hire you?
Yeah, I get those ones too. I get here, we have jobs at Amazon. So customer list, that's a big, huge intangible asset because you can sell that customer list and make some money. Here they have trademarks and then they have technology and software. And this is in-house technology and software created. I always think of accounting programs, but maybe they need a specific type of program to track whatever business they're in, and they bring in somebody who knows how to create one. And so that would be an intangible asset, patents, and then franchises and licenses.
I don't really trust the company, to be honest, with like them using as much goodwill as they do. Like, let's say Amazon with their the speed bottle controversy, where it was said like employees to not like employees who would rather see bottles than go to the bathroom. Would a company like honestly like, accurately say that?
It has to be measurable. So you could, if you can come up with a number that is measurable and that any accountant coming in behind can say, oh, I see how you got that. I would just consider that a publicity fiasco and just go in and try to do something, try to fix it. And normally they accept responsibility. You know, we didn't realize that we were putting so much pressure on our employees. Now we make sure that we roll the bathroom to them, you know, whatever.
We make sure that they don't have the food on site. Where I mean,
Yeah, I mean, that one, you have to be able to measure it some way. Okay, so here's a comparison. And I'm not going to do this because we're getting close to the end and I'm all excited. Okay, fixed assets for long-term assets and intangibles. So they're talking about what should happen here. And so I'm just going to click through because I want the balance sheet. Okay, so normally what happens here is you're going to list your property and equipment, comma, net. So I'm going to combine these two GL accounts together and only list my book value. That's how it's done mostly. But you do have to do this. And then if you're not going to put net and combine the two accounts, you're going to have to list both of them. So also, after your fixed assets would come your mineral rights, those type of fixed assets. After that, it's going to be your intangible assets. And then after that is going to be your investments. So, and investments can be stocks and bonds that you've purchased out in the market. Here is what an example of the note to the financials may look like. So it balances. They probably have the amortization over here somewhere. Fixed asset turnover ratio. Sales divided by your average beginning and ending, added together, divide by 2, value of fixed assets. That's it. So I'm going to grab one and it's right here. And I know I have a handy dandy Excel in here somewhere. So I'll just come up here. This is going to be my sales. And then I'm going to put my beginning fixed assets, my ending fixed assets, my average fixed assets. Okay. And I think this is a real company that they're giving us. Yeah, it's McDonald's 24621.9. I lost somebody. No. 21257.6. Now, if I accidentally mess this up and give you the wrong numbers, I'm sorry. 23117.6. Okay, now what I do in here, I can add these two together and then divide by 2, or I can come up to the magic E and I'm going to click average. There's my average fixed assets. And the reason why I say to do it this way is because sometimes we forget to add the parentheses and it will take and do one function before another. So we got to make sure that's okay. So my ratio is going to look like this. I take my sales divided by my average fixed assets and I get 1.11. That's it. That's pretty easy. Well, what does this mean? This means for every dollar of fixed assets, I'm able to generate $1.11. Okay. You know, that's okay. We can deal. Okay, I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. And I just did exactly what they did. I got they got 1.1. I moved to the second decimal place. Okay. Here are some examples of different restaurant ratios for their fixed assets. And you can see Chipotle actually is doing the best. Yum Brands, somebody was telling me, I claimed that Kentucky Fried Chicken and A&W was in there, but somebody said, no, I was wrong. But Taco Bell's in Yum Brands and Burger King, I believe. So, you know, okay, what was it?
KFC.
Habits?
The habit. What is that? It's like a burger place. Like they have like a falafel burger, cherry burger.
I've never seen this restaurant.
It's like in the hotel. You have to get into the hotel lobby. You know, like the Boston's open up in the hotel lobby.
Yeah,
It's the same thing, but it's been longer. But there's just no advertising for it.
none whatsoever.
And there's so many burger joints. But
Yeah.
since it's in the lobby, whoever just goes to the hotel.
Yeah, wow, interesting. Which hotel?
One next to the Cracker Barrel.
That's why I see the sign up on the freeway and I've always wondered where that. Okay, so so Burger King is not in there. So I was wrong. Sorry, guys. There's Jack, Sonic. I love Sonic, Wendy's and McDonald's. Now here they're showing us some industries. So you got Disney, you know, they're doing pretty good, 2.1. Even though some of those assets that they have are older than me, they are. I remember going to Disneyland when I was 5 or 6. And I remember, okay, I'm a paranoid child. That my parents put me on the Matador or the Matterhorn, and I freaked out because I thought I was going to fall through the tracks. It's just me. But whenever I go back to Disneyland, it takes me back to my memories in my childhood because I remember going through the haunted house. I remember going through Peter Pan, and they're the stupidest rides. I mean, you just sit there. But I'm like I'm so happy. But anyhow, I love Disney for that reason because they make me happy. ExxonMobil, now they're, that's 0.9, but actually if you really think about what type of company they are, they're doing pretty good. So they've got the freighters, they got big boats in the ocean, they got drilling equipment going on, they got all this fixed asset that's happening in order to drill oil so they can make fuel. So 0.9 I'd say is pretty good. Macy's has a 3.5. Manpower is 133.5. And I'm going to tell you the reason why is because they probably have no fixed assets. Most of their businesses are probably rented somewhere in a mall. And if they do have a building, that's going to be kind of rare. So most of it's going to be rented. So they're going to have very few fixed assets. And so that number is going to be high. We already did McDonald's. Union Pacific, that's got 0.4. Now, I said the tracks belong to Union Pacific, but somebody told me, no, I'm wrong. The tracks belong to the government. I don't know. But they still have to maintain the tracks. So I'm thinking in my head, okay, you still got a lot of fixed assets out there. You got big old trains. You've got the engines, you've got all the carts, which I wish they would go and have like graffiti contests and just paint every single one of those carts instead of it being random. And then some people just put some sign up there. And yeah, I'd like them to look a little nicer. But they have their they got their stations that they stop at. So they're going to have quite a bit of fixed assets. One of the things I'm just going to tell you, the railroad industry is subsidized by the federal government. So one of the things that I wanted to do when I was first thinking about going and visiting my daughter a couple years ago, I looked at every affordable option I could. I looked at how much it would cost me if I rented a vehicle, how much it would cost me if I rode the rails, how much it would cost me if I flew. Flying beat out the rest. And basically it was a time issue, but the railroad ticket was substantially more than the ticket on the airplane, my airplane ticket. And there was a good chance that they were going to put me on a bus at one point. And I'm not riding the Greyhound. I nothing against Greyhound. I just know that it's very inconsistent. So I'm not doing the Greyhound. I don't trust them.
From California, California side was okay.
They don't.
Middle of August, they broke. Then the driver told me, oh, if somebody you go outside, somebody give you ride, just take it. I say, I never took the bus here. I say, I don't know nobody here. I said, I trust get somebody. So what about you guys? You cannot call the company to can send another bus, possibly after. He said, no, we don't have that. I said, really complain to her, then everybody speaks. So I don't speak Spanish. They shouldn't explain to me that, but I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish. Please explain to me what's going on. Then keep talking. I got really mad after my husband. That's after this is the America, actually, really, this is like, what about when something happens to us? There's 100 degrees outside. So why you cannot go to police? So can pick us up and take the essential content? They said no, they don't have that emergency.
Yeah, they keep canceling it. And that's what I hear. It probably wasn't broken. They probably just canceled because they didn't have that many passengers and they were lazy. My daughter, when my mom died, okay. So when my dad died in 2017, my mom in 2019, and then in September of 2019, we had a memorial for both of my parents. And so my daughter was coming down and she had a friend take her to Colorado, Denver, and she was going to catch the Greyhound and come back down to here. They canceled it. So so I had to buy plane tickets to get her here, and which ticked me off because, you know.
I used to rent a Greyhound, so there was a point where like I didn't have park for Sunday, and I had to take the Greyhounds back and forth from LA to Jalisco to Indio, 2 days a week. And it looks like they choose the most, like the best crack pins, just like a bunch of just crack addicted people, just tweakers, and then that's why they build their Greyhound stations.
Oh, look, we've got people living on the street. I did take an Amtrak. I took my boys and my mom when she was alive, so it had to be 2019. And we rode, okay, and my husband, he came too. We rode on the Amtrak to LA, from San Diego to LA. And when we got out in LA and we came out of the train station, so you come in and then you somehow or another you get down in and it's underground, and then you come walking out, and there was a park in front of us and homeless people everywhere. There was all kinds of like little tents they kind of fixed up around the park, and they would use the fences in order to. I was so disgusted and sad because why are they allowing all these people? Why isn't somebody coming out and helping them? Where's the government and all this? Somebody needs to help them. And then on the way back. So then we got something to eat. Yeah, we went into like, I don't know, it was like Chinatown or something like that, or some kind of like area like that. And then we found, I don't know why, a barbecue restaurant. That's what we do. So then we went back, and on the way back to San Diego. And so this is supposed to be a really nice ride because you're riding against the ocean the entire time. It's called the Starlight. And on the way back, our view was all the homeless towns underneath the freeway. And again, I mean, we're talking the whole thing covered up with homeless people and tents. And I don't know how many kids are down there. I was just sad. It's just really sad. Anyhow, but oh goodness, I'm over the class time. And that was the end of the PowerPoint anyway. But anyhow, Union Pacific.
I told her a story about how I had was outside the store.
You guys have a wonderful weekend.
And I was supposed to give them like
Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll see you later.
It left 30 minutes earlier before the other bus leave at 5. So I was stuck there from 5 in the morning, LA by myself, until like 8 in the morning for the next bus. And then the second bus didn't have AC.